All right, today we're jumping into a story that really, and I mean really, challenges what most of us think we know about history. We're talking about a narrative that, according to the material we're looking at, has been buried for thousands of years. So yeah, let's get right into it. So let me ask you this. What if the story of creation, the one we're all so familiar with, isn't the real beginning? What if it's just one chapter in a much, much older book? A book where some of the first pages were ripped out on purpose? That's the core question here. And it sends us on this incredible hunt for a world that existed way before the book of Genesis was ever written. Okay, so let's start with this idea of a world before Genesis. The material we're diving into makes a pretty bold claim right off the bat. It talks about a hidden history, something that came long before the biblical stories we all grew up with. The whole idea here is that long before Adam and Eve, there was this golden age, a time when powerful beings walked among us and advanced civilizations thrived. And these civilizations, they had their own deep, profound stories about where everything came from. But those stories, well, they were systematically shut down, called pagan, ignored, or in many cases just flat out destroyed. And we're not just talking about one isolated tribe here. Look at this list. The sheer number of cultures involved is, well, it's pretty mind-blowing. We've got the Kemetic people, the Dogon, the Yoruba. The source material points to all these incredible African societies saying they all had these really complex understandings of the universe, and they all talked about gods with supernatural powers way, way before Western religion became the main story on the block. So, who were these gods, these divine beings? Let's get into the key players in this whole other story. And we're not talking about simple myths or symbols here. The narrative presents them as very real, very powerful beings who had a direct hand in shaping human destiny. Okay, first up, we have the Netheru from the Kemetic people in ancient Egypt. Think of them as these divine forces, almost like intermediaries between the one big creator and, well, everything else. The story really zooms in on two of them. Ptah, who literally spoke the world into existence, and Mat, who was the embodiment of cosmic balance, truth, and justice. You know, the stuff that keeps the universe from falling into chaos. Then you have the Orishas of the Yoruba people. Their story is that a supreme creator, Olodumare, basically gave them the job of shaping our world. And their sagas are filled with epic cosmic battles and divine judgments. And here's where it gets really interesting. Their stories have these incredible parallels to things like the Garden of Eden and the Great Flood. Sound familiar? And this one is really something else. The Nomos of the Dogon people. These weren't just gods, they were described as teachers from the stars. The stories say they came down in a shining ship, were these amphibious, half-fish, half-human beings, and they gave humanity this foundational knowledge about everything, the universe, life itself. And then they just went back to the stars. Okay, so we've got all these incredible ancient stories. How in the world do they connect to texts like the Bible? Well, this next part is where the pieces really start to click together. We're going to look at the direct lines this narrative draws between these ancient African accounts and the biblical stories we know. Check this out. This is probably one of the most powerful examples. On one side, you have the Kemetic god Ptah, who thinks of the world in his heart and then creates it just by speaking. On the other, you have Genesis, and God said, "Let there be light." The similarity is undeniable. And the argument here is that this is no accident. It's evidence that this whole idea of creation by the word has roots that go way, way deeper, back to Africa. All right, now let's turn to a verse from Genesis that pretty much everyone has heard, but maybe hasn't thought too deeply about. Let us make man in our image. Notice the words us and our. It's plural. Theologians have debated this for centuries, and the source material we're looking at has a very interesting take on it. So the question becomes, who is us, right? If the Creator is supposed to be a single being, who else is in the room during this massive, pivotal moment of creation? It's a question that really makes you stop and think. And this is the answer the narrative provides. It points out that the original Hebrew word used for God in that passage is Elohim, which is a plural noun. Now, traditionally, it's explained away as a royal we or referring to the Trinity, but this perspective says, what if we take it literally? What if it means exactly what it says, a council of gods, a group of divine beings? Suddenly, that verse completely changes. It links directly back to those stories of the Netheru or the Orishas, suggesting they might all be talking about the same team of creators, just using different names. Okay, if you thought that was wild, buckle up. Because this next part is maybe the most mind-bending claim in this whole story. The idea that ancient people were given incredibly advanced knowledge from someone or something, not from this world. And the smoking gun for this argument, according to the source, is the Dogon people of Mali. What they knew about the stars centuries ago is something researchers call the Dogon anomaly. Why? Because there's just no conventional explanation for how they knew it. Get this, the level of detail in the Dogon's knowledge is just staggering. For thousands of years, they knew about a star called Sirius B. The problem? It's completely invisible to the naked eye. You need a powerful, modern telescope to see it. But they didn't just know it was there. They knew it was a white dwarf star, super dense. And they even knew its exact orbital period around the main star, Sirius A. 50 years. 50. So you have to ask, how? How is that even possible? It's the central mystery here, and it's the kind of thing that makes you wonder if our whole understanding of ancient history might be missing a giant piece of the puzzle. And the answer this narrative gives is simple, even if it is a bit staggering. The Dogon didn't figure this out on their own. They were told. It was a gift of knowledge from the Nomos. Yep, those same amphibious teachers we talked about earlier. And where did the Dogon say the Nomos came from? You guessed it, the Sirius star system. But this story isn't just about ancient history. It's not just some cool old tale. It actually comes with a message, a kind of ancient warning. And the claim is that it's more relevant right now, today, than ever before. So according to traditions like the Yoruba Ifa oracle, history isn't a straight line. It's a cycle. It starts with forgetting, a time when we lose touch with where we came from, our divine origins. And what happens when you forget? Well, you get chaos. And this is where the narrative points right at us today. All the greed, the fear, the wars, that's the age of chaos. But, and this is the hopeful part, it doesn't stop there. The next phase is the awakening, a time of remembering. The source suggests that this new surge of interest in ancient truths and spirituality, well, that's it. We're in it right now. And this awakening is what paves the way for the final stage, the return, when that ancestral energy comes back and helps us restore balance. I think this quote really says it all. The truth never dies. It hides. The idea is that all this ancient wisdom was never really lost. It just went underground. It was encoded in stories, in rituals, in art, basically just waiting for a time when we'd be ready to listen again. So digging into all this isn't just a history lesson, you know? It's not about memorizing dates and names. It's presented as something much deeper, an act of spiritual liberation. It's about finding a part of ourselves that was lost. And by doing that, we don't just understand the past, we actually have the power to change our future. And so we're left with this huge, thought-provoking question at the end of it all. Is this a genuine forgotten history, a true story of our origins finally coming to light? Or is it something else, a brand new myth being born, one that's perfectly suited for the challenges of our modern age? The source lays out a compelling case, but ultimately what you make of it, well, that's up to you to decide.